So this will be going out in July. So I think when this goes out, you're already in Australia.
Yeah.
So
already on the way.
Already on the way. I bet you can't wait to get going now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm very excited to go.
Yeah.
It's still a little while, but we've been there in January and watched. I had a look at the pitches and the hotels. Getting connected with Australian people was really nice. And yes, I think we're ready to go, and it's really excited that we finally go.
Yeah. So when did you first have this World Cup on your radar? Was it when you took the job? Was it the minute the final whistle went in the Euro final, or have you always had this part of the planning?
No, of course being appointed as the England manager, you have the Euros and you have the World Cup, and we should qualify for the World Cup. So yes, that was in my mind. But you start focusing on it as soon as you're qualified. And that was in September last year.
Okay, so there was no sort of immediate switch over of notebooks at the minute, first final whistle of the Euros at all, and then thinking, right, it's World Cup time now? Or
No, the final whistle of the Euros, we were partying, and I was thinking, okay, now the life's going to change with these players. And then of course you relax a little bit, and then you started to get ready, because we still had to play Austria and Luxembourg to qualify, and we could qualify in September. So that's what we did, and then we really moved on to Australia. While in the background, some people were already, of course, doing a couple of things for the World Cup, but it was not in my system.
How have you managed? You said there about their lives changing. How have you managed that as a group?
Basically, I talk about it, what's going on, and so I think winning the Euros was incredible, and then most of all, the world around the players changed a lot, and you have to manage that. So players try to find their feet, and one more than the others, and we had some support in place, and we talked through things. So it's basically talking about expectations, and what we say all the time. Performing made us where we are right now. So keep the focus on performing. Will keep us where we are, because hopefully we keep performing at the highest level. But there are some projects maybe that come on your way that you really would like to do, and if that fits in your schedule and you want to join that, do it. So use that momentum too, but always keep in mind, is your schedule still balanced, that you can train at the highest level and perform at the highest level.
And their lives changed over that summer. I mean, players before who may or may not have had a slightly, I don't know, wouldn't have had maybe a big spotlight in the press or with people walking down the street, suddenly they're some of the most recognisable people in England and Europe as well.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a change, isn't it?
Well, that's of course a big change. So we talk about that too. How can you cope with that? And players find their ways, and that's the difference. And that's really good too, because it shows the growth of the game, and it showed that we performed really well in the Euros, and people are really proud of us. But you have to think sometimes, okay, I'm going there and there. You need to be aware of it. That it takes some time sometimes.
Yeah. How do you evaluate? How do you sort of look back on the year since? Well, not quite the year, but the year since the Euros finished. How do you kind of see the team's journey since then?
I think we kept on going. So we qualified in September. Then we had a couple of friendlies. We tried out a couple of things. We had the Arnold Clark Cup. Oh, of course, we wanted to play also some highest level games. We played the USA. We played the Finalissima, and of course in April we also played Australia. So we had lots of games, lots of friendlies, where we could see a lot of players, and also develop our style of play. And this is where we are right now.
What's the next sort of stage for this team in their evolution as a group?
We're trying to improve our style of play all the time, and it's also so we're working on that all the time. So what we want to do is go to the next stage. Can we do like what happens? Of course, we're being analyzed very well. So what you want to be is play very dynamic, trying to be unpredictable, and playing with lots of energy too. And in that game, we always talk about principles in our style of play, and you have different solutions in that. And that's what we try to improve with the team at all times, and trying to use the qualities of the players too. So yes, we've done lots of things, like over the camps we had different players being available, which you use different qualities. And now we're in a stage that we know what we have, and the best possible way to play the games in possession, out of possession, in transition moments. And hopefully that brings us wins, because that's why you're doing it. It's not how we want to play, it's not the goal itself, it's how you want to, it's a way to score goals, a way to prevent goals.
And I remember after that Australia game, you were talking, I think I got this right, and how you need to, trying to learn as a team how to play against the teams who sit back.
Yeah, that's what we expect a little bit too.
So how do you prepare for that since then and until you get the players into camp again? Are you sort of watching loads of games? Do you have a notebook scribbling down a million ideas, or how do you sort of go through that in your own process?
We expected this, and we have played many opponents who sit deep, and we had over the last year too. So that's why it's really good that you play different opponents. So you already have an experience in a team sitting really deep and trying to counterattack. And we had that against Czech too. That was really tough. We had it against Australia too. So we know that the spaces are tight, there will be in the possession, and we need players up front to break that line or to break the defense. So that's why it's really good to have, for example, the experience we had against Australia, that it showed us we really need to be more tight on the ball and prevent the counterattack, and because then they can harm us.
Is sort of unpredictability in the team's play something which, during the Euros, you played in a variety of different ways? There were times when you went through the middle, over the top, to the wide, you played in the counter-attack. Is this all part of the whole sort of, I guess, arsenal you want to bring to the World Cup, this ability to mix?
Arsenal, Arsenal, sorry.
Not the team.
No, that's part of being unpredictable. And what I said, you have some principles in your style of playing. We're now talking in possession. And so what does the opponent do? Are they deep? Are they higher? And then you have different ways how you can come behind their defense.
Sure.
And that's what we want to do. And that's also why you want to have more solutions to, say, a football problem. And then you become unpredictable too. More ways to get behind the defense. Do
you love solving these problems? Is that one of the things you enjoy most about coaching?
I really like that. Well, the whole technical stuff, we talk about that a lot. How can we do that? And then what's very exciting too is that the players on the pitch then, we did training sessions, we talked about it and how we can find solutions from out the principles. And then when they find solutions in different ways, that's just really, they take that responsibility and they recognize situations in the game. That's the exciting part of it. And
there's a lot of that on-field leadership as well. So, this will be going out in July, but Leah won't be there. Jill and Ellen have since retired as well. That's a lot of experience. So is this now quite an exciting challenge for you to fill those gaps and establish a new leadership team as well, so that they can make those on-field decisions and switch play and so forth?
Yeah, I think this team has lots of leaders, and I think the squad we have, there's many leaders, many players can take opportunities. And you're talking about injuries. Yes, some, that happens in top sport too. It's really devastating, very sad for the players who can't join or can't go to the World Cup. But other players will step up and they will show their qualities, and we'll find those solutions and step up to take leadership too and to take responsibility. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I can imagine. What's it been like for the last couple of months watching the WSL and seeing the England players playing? Is it, we kind of say, do you look at it through your fingers, hoping, hope no one else gets injured here? Or are you constantly thinking, planning, and then scrapping one plan, putting up another plan as things develop as well?
No, well, you can't control those things. So you're not concerned. Yeah, when someone goes down, you're like, oh, I hope it's okay. But yeah, you're just watching games and see what's happening. And yes, we have plans and we have scenarios, and then at the end of the season, then you can make your final decision, because then you know who you have available. But when you're in your prep camps, things can happen too. In the tournament, things can happen too. So you have to be prepared and to see, okay, what will be the choice now? What will be the tactical choice? What would be in this scenario? What will be a solution? And just make it work.
How much of a World Cup can you plan, if that makes sense? Because there's so many unpredictable events which can happen, injuries, whatever, I don't know, weather changing in the heartbeat, as it might do in some parts of Australia.
You can plan the controllable, and you can think in scenarios and think of solutions in the things you can't control. But that's preparation, and trying to turn every stone. So what could happen in a tournament or in the preparation, what could happen on and off pitch, and how could we solve it? So you're trying to think of all the situations that could develop in that period of time and of solutions, so you can go quicker, or you have the right squad to solve things.
Have you spoken to Gareth Southgate at all? Do you exchange notes with him? Obviously, had the Qatar World Cup recently as well.
Yeah, we of course we meet in the office. Sometimes we have a cup of coffee together and we share some experiences.
What sort of things have you learnt from Qatar and from looking at those competitions?
Well, I just look at, well, it's all about football and what I learned from it. Well, I just listen and you know, I'm not sure that I took a real big lesson out of that. So we prepare. We know all different styles of play. You have some things that you see a lot in some games. So now, for example, the fullback that comes inside, and so things like that. We talk lots about teams and about dynamics of teams and things like that. So we just share experience, and always you take some of it out of it.
You had a hugely successful 2019 World Cup. Is there anything you can take from that experience which you'll take into this, and how to manage an 8-week block away from home, for example? I know with the Euros it effectively was a block away from home because you spent so much time isolated as a group, but is there anything you can take from that at all?
I think you always take things from tournaments, because, well, I've had a couple of tournaments now as an assistant coach, as a head coach. So all these experiences make who I am right now, because you always review and say, okay, this we could do this. This was really good. We can do this better. Now it's another situation. It's another team, but the experience of a tournament you take with you, and I think that makes me a better coach because that develops me too. And then you look at the situation now, and then where you're at, and from there. You're trying to, again, prepare as good as possible, do the right things, and move on.
How do you mentally prepare for a tournament yourself? Because it's grueling, eh? Stressful, I imagine, at times.
Yeah, I just really have to make sure that I'm fit and fresh. So I am ahead of the tournament. You want to prepare as good as possible, but also you want to make sure that you had enough rest, because you need so much energy in the tournament because you're out of there for a long time. And so you better be fit. So I have to be really strict on myself. Make sure that I have enough relaxation moments, that I train a little bit, that my body is fit enough, and I'm fresh when I'm going. Because also for us, it's you're away from home a long time too, but you're also in this tournament so intense. And referring to your first question, you're a long time away from home. That's talking about expectations, and also trying to get, when family's there, get connected with family there, or get connected with family here.
It's a long way away from home, isn't it, Australia as well? How are you going to sort of reduce that distance to back here? Is it the sort of thing, do you go into a bubble, or do you sort of embrace the noise, the sounds from here as well?
I think you should embrace things. I think what you're trying to do, we're all human beings and we're social. We are social. So we know the team and staff, everyone who's involved, also wants to connect with family at home. So we have been thinking about it, and then in our scheduling, we need to get some time that's really fit to the time here, that they can connect. So we're not going to plan meetings then. So we say that's free time, so that's the opportunity to get connected with home. And if there's family or friends over in Australia, we'll find ways to create some family moments so they can connect. I think that's very important too, to refresh a little bit, to get out of the bubble for a second and then go back into our bubble for a second. I think they're not robots. We're not robots. So I think finding the balance in that, performing, working really hard, but also sometimes, get some headspace too.
This tournament, how do you kind of see it in terms of style? I mean, World Cup to World Cups, the way teams play changes. What do you think is going to be like the sort of the dominant way that which teams are going to play in this tournament?
Well, I find that hard to predict. We've seen many things, and I think, well, there are more countries now, so lots of countries that for the first time are at the World Cup. So I think what you see generally, you see big difference that really, like in the Euros, it was like when you went through the stages, teams really played to win and also wanted to play high on the pitch. I think now it's going to be some teams will play really high on the pitch and want to press high, but I also think that teams will drop really deep, and you see some more dynamics too, like what I just said, maybe some rotations more. So I expect that, and I expect the beginning of the tournament that there will be some level differences, I think. But when you come to the next stage, the level of the game will be really, really like going way up, because I think so many countries develop so quickly, and I think the level of the game is just improving and keeps improving.
From an ESPN point of view, we've got to ask about the US team. How do you see their development, their evolution?
Well, I think, the US always performs, and their mentality is really good. Like, if you look at history, they've always been really, really good, and I still think they're in a very good place. They will show up, as always. But I think the development of other countries have caught up a little bit too. So it's becoming harder and harder for them to compete. No, not to compete, but to beat all these countries, what they did in earlier ages. So that's going to be really exciting too, because there's so many more countries that are really high level, and it's exciting to see how that will develop over the summer.
And our Dutch colleagues are keen to know what you think of their prospects as well.
Well, of course, they're missing Vivianne Miedema, of course, but I think they're really they're in a good place. They're a very good team, tactically good, technically good, and they're in the other stage of the tournament. Just like there's basically two lines of the tournament. So yeah, I just hope they do really well, and I think they're in a pretty good place. Awesome.
And with England, they're going to go there as one of the favourites. Is that something you embrace, or do you ignore that completely, tags and so forth?
No, you have to embrace that. I think it's logical that we're one of the favourites. I think England has been one of the favourites over the past tournaments anyway. They made it in the tournaments before these Euros to the semi-finals, so they've done historically really good, I think. And but I think there's so many more favourites in this tournament, because the countries develop so quickly. It's just what I said. So it's exciting. It was at the Euros too. The games were so tight. If you saw the game Spain, which was quarter-final, that was so close. The final, Germany, was so tight and so close. So yes, and that's, I think for the fans in the stands, it's going to be really, really exciting. I think sometimes for the coaches and the people at the side of the game, it's going to be some stressful, a little bit more stressful, but it's good.
What do you think is going to be England's point of difference this summer?
England point of difference?
Yeah, compared to the competitors, the people around you. What could be the defining factor for this group?
Well, I think you can't just say there's one defining factor of the group. I think what we need to do is make sure that we are at our best. And so, yes, we want to win every game. So it starts that what do we have to do? So we have to play our style of play and then adapt to who's in front of us. So being aware of the strengths and the weaknesses of the opponent we have in front of us. Stick together as a team, play as a team, work really hard, and yes, stick with the plans we have, and that will make a difference for us. And I can't predict then what happens, because I can't control what the opponents do.
It's exciting though, isn't it?
It's very exciting.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.